Hi, this is Andrew again. In the grand, sweeping narrative of the Bible, a story of faith, covenant, and divine intervention, there exists a shadowy and often unsettling undercurrent. It is the tale of giants, men of such immense stature and fearsome reputation that they seem to belong more to the realm of myth than to the historical accounts of a chosen people. From the antediluvian world of Genesis to the battlefields of King David, these colossal figures loom over the biblical landscape, presenting a physical and theological challenge to the protagonists of the story. They are not merely oversized men, they are the embodiment of a world gone awry, a lingering vestige of a primordial corruption that God sought to wash away. Who were these titans? Were they a race of men suffering from gigantism, a tribal confederacy of warriors whose size was exaggerated by their smaller foes, or something far more sinister? The biblical texts themselves offer tantalizing, yet often fragmented, clues. They are identified by various names, Nephilim, Anakim, Rephaim, Emim, Zemzumim, each carrying its own connotations of dread and otherness. To unravel the mystery of the giants is to delve into some of the most debated and enigmatic passages of the Old Testament. It requires us to confront questions of angelic rebellion, demonic ancestry, and the very nature of the cosmic conflict that frames the biblical worldview. This video series will embark on a comprehensive journey through the scriptural and historical record, examining each major appearance of these giants, dissecting their lineage, and exploring their profound symbolic importance. We will weave together the disparate threads from Genesis, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Samuel, and Chronicles to construct a coherent, scholarly, and engaging portrait of the giants who haunted the imagination of ancient Israel and, in doing so, prove that their presence is not a mere footnote, but a critical element in understanding the theological drama of the Bible. The origin story of the biblical giants begins not on the battlefield, but in the shadowy epoch before the Great Flood. Genesis 6 verses 1-4 presents one of the most cryptic and debated passages in all of Scripture. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. Here, the narrative introduces the sons of God or the B'nai Elohim, the daughters of humans, and their hybrid offspring, the Nephilim. The identity of this group is the key to unlocking the entire saga of the giants. The first question to ask is, who were the sons of God? The interpretation of B'nai Elohim has been the subject of intense scholarly and theological debate for millennia. Three primary views have emerged. 1. The angelic view. This is the oldest and most widespread interpretation, both within ancient Judaism and early Christianity. Proponents argue that the phrase sons of God is used exclusively elsewhere in the Old Testament, e.g., Job 1:6, 2:1, 38:7, to refer to angelic beings. In this view, a faction of these angels, led by a figure later identified as Azazel or Samiaza in extra-biblical texts like the Book of Enoch, rebelled against God's established order. They lusted after human women, descended to earth, and took them as wives. Their unnatural union produced a race of hybrid beings, the Nephilim. This act was seen as profound corruption, a demonic infiltration of the human gene pool, and a primary catalyst for the judgment of the flood. The New Testament alludes to this interpretation in 2 Peter 2 verse 4 and Jude 1 verses 6-7, which speak of angels who sinned and are held in chains, and who gave themselves over to sexual immorality and pursued unnatural lusts. 2. The Sethite view, popularized by later church fathers like Augustine and Julius Africanus, this view seeks a more human explanation. It posits that the sons of God were the godly line of Seth, the righteous son of Adam. The daughters of humans were the ungodly line of Cain. The sin, therefore, was not angelic human intermarriage, but an intermarriage between the faithful and the faithless, a compromise of spiritual purity that led to a widespread moral decay and violence. While this view avoids the theological complexities of angels having physical bodies, it struggles with the specific terminology of Bene Elohim and fails to adequately explain why the offspring of this union would be giants or heroes of old. 3. The royalty view. A more modern scholarly suggestion is that the sons of God were ancient Near Eastern kings or rulers who, as was common in pagan cultures, claimed divine status or semi-divine ancestry. They practiced polygamy, taking as many wives as they pleased from the general populace, the daughters of humans. Their powerful, tyrannical dynasties and their larger-than-life reputations could have given rise to the legend of the Nephilim as men of renown. While the Sethite and royalty views have merit in certain contexts, the weight of ancient interpretation and the internal biblical evidence points most convincingly to the angelic view. The sheer horror of the event and the extreme divine response, the global flood, suggest a transgression far greater than simple human intermarriage. It was a cataclysmic breach of the created order, a demonic attempt to corrupt the very lineage through which the Redeemer would one day come. Next, let's look at who were the Nephilim. The etymology of Nephilim is uncertain, but it is often derived from the Hebrew root naphal, meaning to fall. This could mean the fallen ones, referring either to their angelic paternity or to their violent, tyrannical nature. The text describes them as heroes of old, men of renown, a phrase that can be understood ironically. They were renowned not for virtue, but for their power, their violence, and their godless might. They were the demigods of a corrupted age, the bullies and tyrants who filled the earth with violence, a key reason for God's judgment, Genesis 6 verses 11 and 13. Crucially, the passage adds a haunting parenthetical: the Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward. This single clause is the linchpin for the entire post-flood narrative of giants. It explicitly states that whatever the Nephilim were, their presence was not entirely eradicated by the waters of the flood. This sets the stage for the terrifying reports that would later paralyze the Israelite spies in the land of Canaan. If the Nephilim were indeed present after the flood, it presents a real puzzle as to what we understand about the flood. The existence of giants after the flood presents a significant theological and narrative puzzle. If God's judgment was total, wiping out all humanity except Noah, his wife, his sons, and their wives, how could the Nephilim, or their descendants, have survived? The text of Genesis 6 provides the key: the Nephilim were on the earth also afterward. This implies that the antediluvian incursion was not the only one, or that the genetic legacy of the Nephilim was somehow preserved. In order to answer this question, several theories attempt to resolve this puzzle. 1. A second incursion. The most straightforward interpretation of and also afterward is that the sons of God repeated their sin after the flood. A second, smaller-scale rebellion occurred, reintroducing the angelic human hybrid lineage into the world. This view maintains the integrity of the flood's judgment while accounting for the post-diluvian giants. 2. Noah's legacy. A more speculative theory suggests that one of Noah's daughters-in-law may have carried the Nephilim gene. Perhaps she was from a family line that had been tainted by the pre-flood corruption. While her husband was righteous, her lineage could have carried the genetic potential for gigantism, which re-emerged in her descendants. This is a possibility, though it is not explicitly supported by the text. 3. The Jibrim interpretation. Some scholars argue that the Nephilim in Genesis 6 are not synonymous with the later giants like the Anakim. They suggest the Nephilim were the antediluvian heroes, Jibrim, and that the term was later used by the Canaanite spies as a generic term for any large, fearsome warrior. In this view, the post-flood giants were not direct descendants of the Nephilim but were simply large human beings whom the spies, in their terror, equated with the legendary monsters of old. The most compelling explanation, and the one that best fits the biblical narrative as a whole, is a combination of the first and third points. The original Nephilim were destroyed in the flood. However, their legacy of might and renown survived in legend. Then, either through a second, limited angelic incursion or through the re-emergence of a corrupted lineage, new races of giants arose in the land of Canaan. These post-flood giants were not the Nephilim of Genesis 6 in a direct, unbroken line, but they were their spiritual and physical successors, the new manifestation of the same ancient evil. They were also afterward, the chilling echo of a primordial sin that refused to stay buried beneath the waves. This understanding allows us to see the conquest of Canaan not merely as a nationalistic conflict, but as the continuation of a cosmic battle against a recurring corruption. The next major appearance of giants occurs at a pivotal moment in Israel's history, the threshold of the Promised Land. In Numbers 13, Moses sends 12 spies, one from each tribe, to scout out the land of Canaan. After 40 days, they return, carrying with them a single, massive cluster of grapes so heavy it requires 2 men to carry it on a pole. This fruit is a tangible symbol of the land's bounty and God's provision. But the spies' report is a masterclass in cognitive dissonance, a clash between faith and fear. 10 of the spies deliver a majority report that is dripping with terror and despair. We went into the land to which you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey. Here is its fruit. But the people who live there are powerful, and the cities are fortified and very large. We even saw descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites live in the Negev, the Hittites, Jebusites and Amorites live in the hill country, and the Canaanites live near the sea and along the Jordan. We can't attack those people, they are stronger than we are. And they spread among the Israelites a bad report about the land they had explored. They said, "The land we explored devours those living in it." All the people we saw there were of great size. We saw the Nephilim there, the descendants of Anak come from Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. Numbers 13:27-33. This passage is explosive. It is the first time the term Nephilim is used after the flood, and it directly connects them to a specific group of people, the Anakim. The spies, in their panic, make a direct genealogical claim. The descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim or at least are like the Nephilim. This is not presented as a rumor but as a stated fact that terrifies them. So, who were the Anakim? The Anakim are presented as the most formidable of the Canaanite giant clans. The name Anak is often associated with the Hebrew word for neck, suggesting a people with long necks, or perhaps more likely, a figurative stiff-necked and proud people. They were a tall, warrior race who inhabited the southern hill country of Canaan, particularly around the city of Hebron, formerly known as Kiriath Arba. The spy's description is hyperbolic but revealing. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes. This is a psychological portrait of fear. Their perception of themselves shrinks in the face of the perceived size of the enemy. This is not just a physical assessment, it is a spiritual one. By seeing themselves as grasshoppers, they are seeing God as powerless to help them. Their fear of the Anakim becomes a crisis of faith, a rejection of God's promise to give them the land. So, what is the Anakim-Nephilim connection? The statement, "The descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim," is the theological core of the spies' report. It links the present obstacle directly to the ancient evil of Genesis 6. They are not just facing big soldiers, they are facing the monstrous offspring of the sons of God. In their minds, they have stumbled upon the also afterward of Genesis 6 verse 4. These are the post-diluvian Nephilim, the survivors or descendants of the antediluvian catastrophe. This connection, whether based on legend, tribal reputation, or actual corrupted lineage, was enough to shatter the faith of an entire generation. It framed the conquest of Canaan as an impossible task, a fight against a race that was, by its very nature, beyond human capability and perhaps even beyond divine help. The 10 spies saw the Anakim and saw only the past, the judgment, and the insurmountable power of a corrupted world order. They forgot the parting of the Red Sea and the provision of manna. The giants in the valley were more real to them than the God on the mountain. It took Caleb and Joshua, the 2 faithful spies, to counter this narrative. They did not deny the size of the inhabitants. Instead, they reframed the conflict. If the Lord is pleased with us, He will lead us into that land, a land flowing with milk and honey, and will give it to us. Only do not rebel against the Lord. And do not be afraid of the people of the land, because we will devour them. Their protection is gone, but the Lord is with us. Do not be afraid of them. Numbers 14:8-9. For Caleb and Joshua, the presence of the giants was not a sign of God's absence, but the ultimate backdrop against which his power would be displayed. The giants were large, but their God was larger. As the narrative shifts from the wilderness wanderings to the actual conquest under Joshua, the text provides more detail about the various giant clans populating the land. The book of Deuteronomy, which functions as Moses' theological retelling of the journey, offers a fascinating ethnography of these giant peoples, linking them together as related branches of a monstrous family tree. In Deuteronomy 2 verses 10-11, Moses describes the land of Moab. The Emim, a people as great and numerous as the Anakim and as tall as the Anakim, formerly lived there. They are also counted as Rephaim, but the Moabites call them Emim. Here, we are introduced to two new names, the Emim and the Rephaim. The Emim, meaning terrors, were a race of giants who inhabited the land east of the Jordan before being displaced by the Moabites. Crucially, Moses equates them with the Anakim in stature, as tall as the Anakim, and with the Rephaim as a broader classification. Later, in Deuteronomy 2 verses 20-21, Moses describes the land of Ammon. That too is considered a land of the Rephaim. The Rephaim formerly lived there, but the Ammonites call them Zemzumim. They were a people as great and numerous as the Anakim, but the Lord destroyed them. The Ammonites dispossessed them and settled in their place. The Zamzumim, a name possibly related to a Hebrew word for murmuring or buzzing, perhaps referring to their strange speech or the sound of their approach, are another branch of the Rephaim, also of comparable size to the Anakim, who were wiped out by the Ammonites with God's help. So, who were the Rephaim? The Rephaim are the most frequently mentioned giant clan in the Old Testament. The name is complex and carries a dual meaning. In texts like Job 26 verse 5, Isaiah 26 verse 14, and Psalm 88 verse 10, Rephaim refers to the shades or spirits of the dead who inhabit Sheol, the underworld. This connection to the dead is profound. It suggests that the Rephaim were not just large, living men, but were associated with a realm of death and the occult. They were, in a sense, the living dead, a race whose very existence was an unnatural blurring of the lines between life and the underworld. This echoes the demonic origin of their Nephilim ancestors. They were people whose life force was drawn from a forbidden, deathly source. In the historical books, however, the Rephaim are clearly a living, physical race of giants. The most famous Rephaim was King Og of Bashan. Deuteronomy 3 verse 11 describes him in vivid detail. Only Og king of Bashan was left of the remnant of the Rephaim. His bed was made of iron and was more than 9 cubits long and 4 cubits wide, about 13.5 feet long and 6 feet wide. It is still in Rabbah of the Ammonites. This is not a vague report of large people. This is a specific, archaeological detail meant to impress upon the reader the sheer scale of this man. Og was the last of a remnant, suggesting that the other Rephaim clans had already been defeated or displaced, a process God was orchestrating through the various nations moving into the region. The biblical text presents a fascinating picture of a giant diaspora. These Rephaim-related clans, Anakim, Emim, Zemzumim, once controlled vast territories, but God was actively using other peoples to dispossess them, clearing the land before the arrival of Israel. This was a two-stage cleansing. First, the Moabites and Ammonites cleared the eastern territories. Then, Israel would be tasked with clearing the west. The conquest of Canaan was thus part of a larger, divinely ordained geopolitical shift to purge the land of its corrupted, Rephaim inhabitants. With the stage set by Deuteronomy's ethnography of terror, the book of Joshua chronicles the execution of God's judgment against these giant clans. Joshua is a book of holy war, and the giants are the ultimate prize and the ultimate symbol of the old, corrupt order that must be utterly destroyed. The campaign against the Anakim, in particular, serves as the climactic arc of the southern conquest. After the stunning victories at Jericho and Ai, Joshua turns his attention to the southern hill country, the heartland of the Anakim. Joshua 10 details the southern campaign, culminating in a remarkable passage in Joshua 11 verses 21 to 23. At that time Joshua went and destroyed the Anakim from the hill country, from Hebron, from Debir, formerly Kiriath-Sepher, and from Anab, from all the hill country of Judah, and from all the hill country of Israel. Joshua utterly destroyed them with their cities. None of the Anakim were left in the land of the people of Israel. Only in Gaza, in Gath, and in Ashdod did some remain. This is a statement of total victory. Joshua, the man who had stood with Caleb against the faithless report of the spies, is now the instrument of that very faith. He systematically attacks the Anakim in their ancestral strongholds, Hebron, Debir, Anab, and utterly destroyed them. The Hebrew word here is Huram, which means to devote something to complete destruction, often by fire, as an offering to God. This was not just a military conquest, it was a ritual cleansing of the land. The source of the spies' terror, the living descendants of the Nephilim, were systematically eradicated from the territory that would become Israel. This concludes our first video in the series on giants in the Bible. Our next video in this series will discuss the fact that the giants only remained in Gaza, Gath, and Ashdod, and of course will cover the struggle between David and Goliath. Be sure and watch the next video in this series to watch how the remaining giants are handled by the Israelites and what these stories of giants are all about. To watch more videos like this one, you can go to our website at nehemiahreset.org, to our rumble.com or youtube.com channels. We publish new videos weekly. You can also sign up to receive our weekly new video list by going to nehemiahreset.org/email and sign up for our weekly newsletter. To help our channel, please like and subscribe so that more people can see these important videos. Thanks for watching and have a great day.
Are you looking for a limitless supply of insightful reads to expand your mind and transform your life? Look no further than Nehemiah Reset's ebook library, where knowledge meets inspiration at nehemiahreset.org ebook. Go there today to discover a wealth of valuable resources to help you on your personal and professional journey to build a biblical worldview. Learn more about the Bible and how culture is impacting your worldview. Again, the ebook library is located at nehemiahreset.org ebook. Hope to see you soon. My name is Andrew. I am one of the spokespersons for Nehemiah Reset. The prior video was sponsored by Nehemiah Reset, a 501c3. Our mission is to assist Christians in developing a biblical worldview as it pertains to relevant cultural and biblical issues. We seek to inform Christ's followers, equip them, and mobilize them in action to vote for their biblical values and actively engage in our We are also committed to help Christians and non-believers to develop a better biblical view. Nehemiah Reset produces videos and ebooks to assist members of the church in developing a biblical worldview when it comes to cultural issues. We produce videos on key topics like public school indoctrination, the woke agenda, sex education, equity and inclusion, climate change, immigration, religious freedom, and much, much more. To learn more about Nehemiah Reset or to watch our latest videos, go to our website at nehemiahreset.org or our rumble.com channel. We produce 2 to 3 videos every week. To get a weekly list of our latest videos, sign up for our weekly newsletter by going to nehemiahreset.org/email and subscribe. You can support our website by liking our videos, subscribing to our channels, or helping us reach more people through tax-exempt donations. Thanks for your help in growing God's kingdom and bringing more people to Christ. Thank you for your support and help. Come back again soon. Have a great day.